科技咧就好似生命冇咗水一樣，生存唔到。
做生意首先要諗自己覺得過唔過癮先，冇科技係永遠都唔會有創新嘅。
Dream it possible， 唔好俾自己有框框，早啲同銀行傾你個計劃，你會早啲完成你嗰個目標。
即上恒生商業銀行 YouTube 頻道睇足本分享，實踐創業夢，將不可能變可能。恒生最新商業戶口最快3天開戶，全程網上辦妥，立即上網或致電查詢啦。
Welcome to the HKTDC Entrepreneur Day 2021. During the 3-day event, simultaneous interpretation services in English, Cantonese, and Mandarin will be provided. You may select the audio channel next to the video frame, and you're also welcome to raise questions through the Q&A box. Selected questions will be asked at the Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. Without further ado, the session, Creating a Better Future with SDGs, will now begin. Please welcome our first speaker, Mr. John Dutton, head of UpLink World Economic Forum.
Greetings, this is John Dutton here at the World Economic Forum. It's a pleasure to be with you today as part of the Entrepreneur Day experience. We are, with UpLink, we've had quite a number of occasions to be in touch with the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, and always it's a pleasure to try to inspire entrepreneurs and to think about how each of you out there could get involved with an entrepreneur revolution. UpLink was created by the World Economic Forum in partnership with Salesforce and Deloitte about 2 years ago, and it's become the open innovation platform of the World Economic Forum. It started as an idea to really encourage entrepreneurs anywhere to try to support their solutions to scale. We have been focused mostly on the SDGs and started with an initiative in the oceans, moved on to nature, been responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, but also run innovation challenges, over 30 of them, across issues like the circular economy, which we'll hear from Christian later on, as well as climate, water, education, the healthcare sector, and many more topics. We're really pleased to say that after nearly 2 years, the platform has grown quite a bit. We have over 35,000 registered users on the platform. Around 3,000 solutions have been submitted by entrepreneurs. We've generated so much visibility for those entrepreneurs through our social media accounts of UpLink and the World Economic Forum. There's been 200 of the top innovators from the platform that have been selected, tested, and are now being actively supported through an innovation network program. And we are now really pleased to say that over 35 of the entrepreneurs amongst the top innovators have actually received funding since they joined the platform, additional funding, I should say. But to tell you a little bit more about UpLink and how we work, I thought it'd be nice to actually show you a video and hear from a few more of the entrepreneurs themselves. Perhaps I could invite the team in Hong Kong to play the video.
It just really gave us this credibility on a global scale right off the bat. And we were in great company with the other startups that were in there.
It has been fantastic, the support that we've gotten, how easy it is just to reach out and have immediate access to such influential people that can help us solve the issues that we're having, overcome the barriers.
we've had an opportunity to meet with like-minded entrepreneurs that, quite frankly, we wouldn't have even known existed without the platform.
The connections that we've been able to make have been second to none. I mean, it's been so successful that one of the companies in our cohort we're seriously entertaining a strategic relationship with moving forward.
Exactly a year ago, we were in the process of securing around $1 million of investment. And over the past year, that has really helped us get the team built and get the first projects on board. And we're on track to raising a multiple of that amount by the end of this year, which will again enable us to once again scale up our impact in a really meaningful way.
We did raise the £2 million, actually. We had great funders. So we had investors from the US, UK, and Europe. It did give us that big lift at that crucial point in our development.
On a monthly basis, we're channelizing about 20,000 metric tons of dry waste, focusing on plastics and electronic waste.
The same space, and it's just the mutual support that we can give each other, and that can sometimes translate into real business dollars and real opportunities.
Hopefully that gives you an idea of what UpLink has been able to achieve. That was produced this past fall and is alongside the UN General Assembly Week, which is to mark 2 years since the project was announced as with this type of an ambition. We've continued on since there. The COP26 week was an important moment where we unveiled an additional 25 top innovators. And alongside the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos, we will pass that 200 mark, where we're really excited to see how these entrepreneurs can take a center stage in protecting people and the planet. For us, it has been quite a journey, but it's really only the start. We've been able to go really deep along 4 or 5 different SDG areas, but we know we need more collaboration. We need more opportunities to support the world's biggest initiatives, to find how entrepreneurs can take a really important part in disrupting innovation and showing that we can do both great business while doing really well for the world as well. And with that, I guess I want to close with this opportunity to expand on our vision for being really the platform for anyone, anywhere. We know that it's not easy to be an entrepreneur. It's even harder to be an entrepreneur when you're working outside of the more traditional Silicon Valley, Oxbridge, Berlin ecosystems where entrepreneurs have the type of investment, they have the type of university support and businesses that are helping them. And we're really happy to say that more than 2/3 of the top innovators that have made it through UpLink are actually from the Global South. And with this, we want to be thinking about Asia. How can we collaborate with more organizations across Asia to support the entrepreneurs that are doing great work in the eastern part of the world? So I invite this as an opening dialogue. I look forward to hearing Christian's presentation as well, and to having the dialogue with Kenneth later on in the conversation.
Thank you, John, for sharing your insights with us. Next, we will have Mr. Christian from Maaren, founder of Excess Materials Exchange. Hello, Christian, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, clearly. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So as John already introduced me, I'm, I guess, one of the sort of lucky startups or scale-ups that is part of the World Economic Forum community and the UpLink community have benefited greatly from the support and the help. And what I would like to share with you right now is very briefly an introduction of the stuff that we are working on, and hopefully in supporting the World Economic Forum's mission, and I think also further advance the world towards the Sustainable Development Goals. So my name is Christian van Maaren. I'm one of the founders of the Excess Materials Exchange. We're a company based in Amsterdam, been around for about 5 years. And what we are doing is helping to bring the world towards the circular economy. And before I go into that in a bit more detail, I want to share some statistics, some waste statistics. You may already know them, but I find them mind-blowing, to be honest. Is that in Europe, but I'm sure this is the same globally. It's been said that of all, let's say 90% of all raw materials going into manufacturing never leave the factory as a final product. So they're waste to begin with. And then of those products leaving those factories, 80% are waste within the first 6 months of their existence. So I feel like what we have created in this linear economy, which is where we are in right now, is an incredibly wasteful economy, which really has to change, seeing all the challenges that we have before us. But we also see that it's difficult. Someone once told me, and I really like this, is that the circular economy seems to be stuck in the future. Because I don't know how well aware you are about the circular economy, but the circular economy is maybe best explained, maybe just to briefly touch on in that by what it's not. So we're now living in the linear economy, which is the sort of the make, use, and dispose economy, where basically materials are being lost, or being either landfilled or in some cases, in small cases, recycled. And the circular economy is a new way of thinking, where we move towards infinite loops, where we move towards recycling or reusing, remanufacturing materials and products in the highest value way possible. So when I tell this to you, you're probably thinking this makes total sense. Why aren't we doing this? And most people would agree with you, most governments, most companies that we talk to. But still, it seems to be quite difficult to define a pathway towards that circular economy that works. And that's why I really like this tag phrase that the circular economy seems to be stuck in the future. And so what we're focusing mostly on with our company is looking at reuse and recycling. And we see that it's quite difficult for three main reasons. And I'll go into a bit more detail later about some of the other reasons. And that is that we have a huge legacy issue. The world is designed for the linear economy, which means that most of the stuff that we're using, buildings that we live in and whatnot, they have not been designed for reuse and recycle. So that, already takes a bit of an effort to make it ready for that. And also at the same time, the demand for these materials is not that high yet. It's up and coming now, but it's not there yet. And this is made more difficult by very poor data availability. We call it waste, but it's of course much more than that. It's product, it's components, it's materials with all sorts of characteristics and whatnot. But that data is often lost. We would often also say that sort of waste is materials that have lost their way. And this is important. The figure you see on the right-hand side in this circular bridge, which is, by the way, in Denmark, in the north of Denmark, is the circularity score of the world last year. There's an organization in the Netherlands called Circular Economy. They do what they call a circular gap analysis. And last year, that was 8.6%. You can go to their website to find out how they calculate that. And interesting to note, the year before that, it was 9.4%. So it's actually going down. And what they're also saying is that this figure needs to double by 2032 for us to stay below the 1.5 degrees Celsius target, which we all agreed on in Paris. And the circular economy is a way to do that. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is another sort of thought leader in this space, has once calculated, I think it was a couple of years ago, where they said that the that if we were to adopt circular economy principles, and this was actually in 5 sort of industries: food, steel, cement, plastic, and aluminum, it would actually get us almost halfway towards the Paris Climate Agreement target, so 45%. So that's why, the circular economy really, can serve as maybe one of the fastest, if not cheapest, ways to reach the Paris Climate Agreement targets. And so what we want to do with our platform is to create a world in which the use of these secondary materials is risk-free, cheaper, and also at the same time reduces your environmental footprint. And what we see that there's quite a few obstacles in the road there. And we sort of split those obstacles in above the waterline obstacles and below the waterline obstacles. Sort of above the waterline, that's what we know, right? There's a lack of transparency. This is already what I talked about, where a lot of organizations don't know that they may use the materials of their neighbor, or the other way around. Increased liability. A lot of organizations are wary of using waste because they don't really know what's in it, so they're a bit wary of using it, and they have the sense that insurance companies won't insure them anymore. This is actually not true. We talk to a lot of insurers, and they say, "Well, it's great that you talk to us about this. It's the first time we hear about it. We would love to work with that." Then there's a lack of standards. So in using virgin materials, the world is highly standardized with all these standards that companies have to adhere to, but this doesn't exist yet for secondary materials and waste. And this, I think, is a huge lost opportunity, because that also makes it a bit more difficult for organizations to start using these materials. And I already mentioned poor data availability. We have not met any company yet, and we work with many companies that have sort of a detailed administration of the excess materials that they have, or waste streams that they have. And some of these organizations, they have warehouses full of, products, finished products that have never been used before, that are going to be scrapped if it was not for us to sort of step in the way, that could be used for in their original purpose. But even for those products, often they have no data on what it is, what it can do, or what certificates may have. So a very interesting challenge to unearth that data. But these are sort of the known obstacles that we have. And then I feel like there's a lot of sort of stuff below the waterline, and that is that we find that that companies are difficult to move towards a circular economy because there's no real burning platform yet. It's changing. I think we're now really at the junction point, but there is no real resource scarcity yet. It's happening now in some industries. There's no stringent government policy yet. Also, that is changing. And also, a lot of organizations find the current situation acceptable. It's not great, but it's acceptable. And we see that this is often, compounded by the fact that there's no real incentives inside or outside of organizations to make this change happen. A lack of strong KPIs. We would often say that, the circular economy is a great talking point, but for a very long time, it hasn't been an action point. Now, luckily, and also I would have to say, thanks to the work that the World Economic Forum is doing, this is now changing, where it's slowly migrating from being a talking point to being a real action point. Now, then there's also 2 linear lock-ins that I would like to briefly touch on. One is sort of a softer linear lock-in, where we see that a lot of organizations from sort of a process point of view are very much geared towards the linear economy. And just a couple of examples that we ran into is that, so we want to help companies sell their waste or sell their excess materials. But some of the organizations that we work with, many sort of government organizations, they don't have a sales department. So, simple stuff that inhibits them from getting maximum value from their waste streams. But then there's a lot of other reasons within organizations why it's difficult. And, to help get them unstuck, it requires much more than just a digital platform, which is we offer, but it really involves system change. And then next to that, there's more of a physical linear lock-in, where not only are a lot of current products and components and materials hard to disassemble, reuse, and recycle, but it often also requires additional machinery. So it requires some investment that has to be made by these organizations. Now, lots of obstacles. So there's no reason to be bored these days, and that's where our platform comes in. So we would describe ourselves as a dating site for secondary materials and waste. And what we mean by that is that we actively match supply and demand, and we match materials with technology that can ensure high value reuse. And this means that we also include all necessary players required to make transactions happen. So this can be law firms, banks, but also in a lot of cases governments as well, to make sure that especially when you transport waste across borders, it becomes very regulated. So then you often need the support from the governments to make things happen. And we find that most of them are very willing to work with us because they want this, right? They want to get this unstuck. And the way that we approach this is that we work in sort of three ways. We give waste streams an identity using something that we call the resources passport. So we try to get waste out of anonymity and really give it back an identity, and then using that, help them sort of find their way again and find a high value next use application. Then we add intelligence to that, which is luckily not only our own intelligence, but we're using, of course, artificial intelligence, because we are a scale up. And if you don't use AI these days, you're not really part of the game anymore. And, you know, our role is really focused on helping to improve data-driven decision-making. So we use AI to help find high-value next uses. We have built an extensive database of thousands of technologies that we can then use our AI tools on to find these high-value next uses. But we also integrate it, and this is the next part, the integral approach, linked to that data on environmental, social, and financial impact. So this furthers the ability to make better data-driven decisions, also around the impact that the choices that you have. And this is important because, you know, as the sustainability agenda is moving further, companies are now often faced with many different sustainable options, and it's actually quite difficult to differentiate them because it's all, you know, the sustainability realm is very much in the sort of gut feel space. It feels good, but there's often not a lot of data to support certain decisions. And that's where we want to make a bit of a difference by linking environmental impact to the passports that we are creating, and then also making it easier to just decide, okay, sorry, this impact fits our strategy better than the other one because of maybe we find water impact really important, or we find CO2 really important. So our features are the passport, which gives you a full insight into the product, and also a location, end-of-life opportunities, and whatnot. Then we built marketplaces for some of our larger clients where they can exchange materials internally before they go external. This is an example of ProRail, which manages our rail infra in the Netherlands. Sorry. Then we also enable tracking and tracing. So we link our passports with all sorts of IoT devices like RFID tags or barcodes or QR codes, so you can see where stuff is. And we see that this is also really important in the circular economy because it allows you to understand where materials are coming from and gives you a greater confidence of the accuracy of the information that's in the passports. You know, a lot of our clients say, if we know where it's coming from, we can trust the information a bit more, and we don't have to do testing on these materials. The trust is an important factor in the circular economy, and having the passports and having the tracking and tracing helps support that. Then we have a valuation dashboard. So we give each waste stream a financial valuation where we calculate what the end-of-life value is using this waterfall diagram. And we do the same for the environmental impact. This we developed together with Ernst & Young, where we do basically an LCA light. And this is where we support the decision-making of our clients with real data, where they know, okay, this is the environmental profile, impact profile of these choices. And then lastly, we have our AI-assisted matchmaking. What you see here, this may be a bit confusing, is two passports. Here you see a railroad track, and it has different data nodes on it. And those data nodes are again connected to the data nodes of another passport, which is a construction beam. And as you can see, they're linked on 3 nodes here. And those nodes are materials here, they're all steel. And here on the bottom, 2 functionalities. And this is sort of a brief glimpse of how our AI system works. We basically throw in lots of data in a data lake, and then we see how different things are interlinked and interconnected. And then the more links there are, the higher it would end up on the recommendation list for our clients. And so we work with ProRail, we work with airports. In this case, this is Schiphol. And then we have many, many programs that we're part of, including also the World Economic Forum, but also Solar Impulse, Urban Tech, Tech Leap, and even Prince Charles mentioned us once in the speech, was really great. And maybe one example, just to give a bit more context. In the Netherlands, we work with the Dutch railroad management company. So they have lots of railroad tracks as access materials. And we also have a lot of bicycle sheds, and bicycle sheds in the Netherlands are enormous because everybody cycles. And what we found is that you can actually use these railroad tracks as, in this case, columns in this bicycle shed. So we give them a new life without any additional manipulation. You only have to cut them to a certain length, but you don't have to melt them down, which actually is a huge environmental impact. CO2 emission reduction of about 80%. And it also looks kind of nice. And it also, it allows the train user to start the train journey before they enter the train, which is something that our client really likes. And as you can see here, we already start the tracking and tracing process when it is in the yard with a barcode here. But these columns will be outfitted with a QR code, so that the traveler can see exactly where these railroad tracks are coming from. So this is just an example of how our platform works and how we can find matches for materials that would otherwise be melted down or destroyed in a completely new function. And I think before I lose my voice completely, I'm sorry about that. I would like to leave it at that, and then have a glass of water, so I'm ready for the questions of Kenneth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian, for your ideas and thoughts. Next, we'll move on to the Q&A session. We're glad to have Mr. Kenneth Kwok, founder of Global Citizen Capital and KIDsforSDGs and UpLink top innovator, to be our moderator today. Kenneth, please.
Thank you. Well, Christian, I hope you feel better. Trust me, it's winter's coming, so do look after yourself. John, always, always wonderful to see you again. My name is Kenneth. I am very honored to join the UpLink community in 2020. And just to give you a bit of background, I actually, before I came on stage, I went through the guest list joining this conference, and I see a lot of familiar names from the UpLink community. So first of all, thank you to our fellow top UpLink innovators as well as general members of our community for dialing in to listen to John and Christian. Given that we have an international crowd with us today, I thought I would start off with actually explaining a little bit more about HKTDC, which stands for Hong Kong Trade and Development Council. Hong Kong is a vibrant startup ecosystem, and HKTDC, frankly, is the core and the hub of it all. They work with Cyberport and Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, which are two of government-funded startup incubators. Overall, I would say we have 6,000 plus startups who have, from all around the world, who have actually come to Hong Kong as a starting point for them to scale their projects, their initiatives, and more importantly, their social impact across our region. And John raised a very good point about developing an ecosystem to support founders and entrepreneurs. Well, John, love to let you know that between Cyberport and Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, most startups get funding anywhere starting at $25,000 US, all the way, and the sky's the limit, to millions of US. And this is one of the active ways the Hong Kong government supports purposeful startups and founders. So for all you UpLink top innovators out there who have always been curious and frankly have an ambition to scale your impact into our region, please do connect with us at HKTDC, and myself, I'm also happy to facilitate these type of conversations. Now, let's get back to our core theme today of bridging businesses and startups with the SDGs. Let's start with the first question, and I hope John and Christian can also reflect on this with us and the rest of the audience. SDGs right now is such a big thing. Everyone talks about it, but to a lot of startup founders, it just seems so big, right? You know, as an entrepreneur myself, the first step you take into a journey of starting a purposeful company, I don't think most people will put SDGs or sustainability, you know, at the forefront. Alas, that is changing rapidly. And if you don't believe me, you can look at the success that have been enjoyed by all the UpLink top innovators. So John, if you don't mind starting us off, based on your experience with UpLink so far, how would you advise first-time founders to really put the SDGs in the DNA of their startup to make it successful?
Yeah, thank you for this warm welcome, Kenneth. It's always a pleasure to come together with you and aim to inspire others. Listen, this may be a little bit contrarian, but actually, I don't think the SDG is that important. In fact, it can be distracting. The more important thing is for you to, as a founder of an entrepreneur enterprise, look at your surrounding area. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? And I think really try to link that problem you're trying to solve to some of the world's biggest challenges. Now, is the SDG, is it number 6 or number 14? Frankly, I think that you're going to find that most of the key issues, and you know, everything that Christian talked about, yes, there is a number 12 about transforming consumption, but you know, it's so applicable to across, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 different SDGs. But the important thing is that, you know, he's trying to change business models to make them more sustainable and to think really about both the inputs and outputs and how that they are becoming more circular in their nature. So I think that the first thing is really just focus on the problem. Focus on a problem that you see in the world that is that needs some help and could use some innovation to disrupt the way that things are currently working. I think the second thing, and this may also sound a little bit counterintuitive, but I think it's really important to look at what is your commercial strategy? Because as great as your innovation or your technology is that you're putting out there, if you don't have a plan for thinking about the financial sustainability of your endeavor, it's not going to get off the ground. And if it's not going to get off the ground, you're not going to get to scale. That's one of the things that we've been really keen to support the UpLink innovators with over the last year. And I think even more so going forward is, how can we support all of you with the types of insights, inspiration, but also workshops that can help people evolve and build their commercial strategy? So those would be the two things. Try to solve a problem that is really linked to some of the world's biggest issues, and then try to, you know, focus on a business model that can grow.
Right. Thank you so much, John. Well, Christian, pivoting to you as a UpLink top innovator, when you started this wonderful journey of yours, right? Listening to what John had just said, right? How do you think, does it reflect on your personal journey that, hey, I mean, trust me, we all know what you're solving. It's a real problem that we face. As John knows, we co-founded Family Mart, which is a PPE company. And trust me, we look at excess materials every day. But yes, Christian, if you don't mind reflecting on some of the wisdom that John has kind of shared with us, how do you think first-time founders can really scale up their impact from day one?
No, I mean, I totally agree with what John is saying. I mean, we started the organization because we wanted to make a big impact, right? We really felt like that with the circular economy, we could sort of, you know, use it as one of the sort of fastest and cheapest avenues to reach the Paris Climate Agreement targets. That was our goal. But what we also have found, really to John's point, is that for most companies, for most commercial companies, it's you know, profit first, sustainability second. So I think the challenge that startups have, and I think, you know, to be honest, most companies have, is that we should seduce companies to start behaving in the right way, make it attractive, make it irresistible, make it seductive. And in a way, that's a nice message, but it's also a bit of a sad message, right? Because you really hope that you can sort of speak to the heart, the intrinsic motivation of organizations to do good. But in the end, you know, we all have to make money. We have to make money as well to keep the lights on. So it's really important to focus on solutions that make business sense, because otherwise you will never get sort of past the subsidy phase, right? Now, having said that, there is a lot of value in the SDGs in that it has created a common vernacular for a lot of ways how we can talk about sustainability. And I think this is super useful, right? Because you can position your solution in such a way and translate it in a way that actually speaks to how these corporates work, because they all know about the SDGs, they all know what it means, and they all know how important it is for their business, for their license to operate, and for their license to grow. So I feel like of course, all social entrepreneurs, they want to make an impact. But if you manage to get to a place where you have a solution that makes business sense, I think there's a lot of benefit in using the language used by the SDGs to translate that in a message that appeals to these big corporates, because then you can get them on your side, and then they become not just clients, but they become your partners. And I think that's super useful. And maybe this is already to some of your other questions, but that's also where the UpLink community and where the World Economic Forum community can really help, because they can help shape that message, and they can help link you to the right partners. They can actually help you manifest those solutions.
Yeah, maybe I just jump quickly in there, Kenneth. I think that the power is in the indicators and the way in which both companies and investors are starting to report on that impact. And so, Christian, I think you're completely right that if you are able to align your commercial and impact success along with those indicators of the relevant SDGs, you're going to have a world of opportunity when you're talking to either corporates or investors.
Thank you, John and Christian. And no, literally, just before this session, I had the honor of listening to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, right? And they were saying about, hey, all you listed companies in Hong Kong, and as most of you know, Hong Kong is one of the biggest listing hubs in the world. And they were like, hey, you gotta report on your ESGs, but frankly, let's take a step back, right? How is this ESG metrics actually impacting, like creating measurable, tangible impact to the stakeholders and the communities you serve? So Christian's spot on, right? And this actually leads beautifully into my next question for John, which is, now that we have seen the success of UpLink, and I absolutely agree with you, John, this is just the beginning. We are the unicorn of scaling impact, but at the same time, there are galaxies to explore. If you look at the Hong Kong multi-stakeholder ecosystem, we have, unicorns, we have many, many listed companies, right? We have large NGOs, top universities in Asia are based in Hong Kong. How would you advise that some of these organizations, now that they've heard from you about the power of UpLink, actually reach out to you and the World Economic Forum to collaborate and hopefully create an ecosystem for more and more founders across Hong Kong, the Greater Bay Area, and the rest of Asia to engage with UpLink?
Yeah, thanks, Kenneth. I think in a lot of ways, UpLink is still very much a startup, and it is growing through its own scale-up and growth phase, if you will. But we've started to have some really interesting success stories and case studies. And I think the big ambition that we're looking to go with on the next year is looking at UpLink as a key and mobilizing factor in making positive systemic change possible. Now, the one that I would kind of give as inspiration for Hong Kong, Greater Bay, Asian colleagues, companies, initiatives is what we've been able to do in the restoration of nature space. And I particularly look to a collaboration that we have to support the Amazon in collaboration with the government of Brazil, Colombia, the American Development Bank. OneT.org is really the big implementing initiative, which is trying to restore and conserve a trillion trees, but also with an ecosystem of investors like the Amazon Investor Coalition. We've been able to design and implement not just an innovation challenge, but an opportunity to see those entrepreneurs be a pivotal role in kind of restoring and conserving the Amazon, because the governments are in a position to create policies that support bioeconomy entrepreneurs. The investors and the IADB are in a position to really help fund and support their growth. And the forum and UpLink and 1T.org are in a position to provide visibility and credibility for kind of all of those actors to come together in a way that we haven't seen before. And this is something that we've really focused on with 1T.org, with their corporate alliance, to try to grow the way in which ecopreneurs, a subset of the entrepreneurs that are on the UpLink platform, are really putting nature first. And we're excited that by Davos this year in January, or I should say next year, we will have nominated, selected, and supported 100 ecopreneurs. And this talks about the beginning of a movement. And so I guess my challenge, if you will, to the corporations, governments, foundations, billionaires, philanthropists in the Hong Kong Greater Bay Area would be, what is that big issue that we can collaborate with? And for us to really dream big, to put together that coalition of stakeholders that can make a big difference, but can also support entrepreneurs to be at the heart of innovation that is driving that change. So definitely reach out through Kenneth, through the Hong Kong Trade and Development Council, or directly to us at UpLink.
Thank you, John. No, one thing when I was listening to you, what really brought back memories was, I think it was in January 2020 when I was in the Ice Village, right? And 1 trillion trees back then is like, that sounds like a lot of trees, right? I mean, 1 trillion. And now a year and a half later, everybody just kind of took it for granted that we are going to get to 1 trillion trees. It's just a matter of time. So I'm telling you, it is truly an inspiration that 100 ecopreneurs are not just working on their individual projects. UpLink actually brings them all together, and through knowledge transfer and know-how transfer, they really, amplify their collective impact. So kudos to you, John, and of course the UpLink team. Christian, if I may pivot to you slightly. Now that you are, growing leaps and bounds, right? The innovation, you have the mindset, and you also have the vision to really deal with something where, unfortunately, I have to say, between China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Asia is the hub of global manufacturing. I can't imagine in some sense, why are you not moving to Hong Kong? But until that happens, Christian, or set up a headquarters. By the way, we're very good at helping global companies set up their regional headquarters in Hong Kong. Literally, we have the fastest and most efficient process thanks to Hong Kong Trade Development Council. What would you think, Christian, how you can scale what you have done amazingly and really ramp up that impact across the Asian manufacturing hubs?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And maybe about your other point, we can maybe talk about that at a later stage. I mean, we are very interested in looking at moving east in that sense. But to your other question, I think one of the things that we learned very well is to understand, 5 years ago when we were really a startup, is what you're good at and what you're not good at. And there was also sort of, from my previous career, an African proverb that I always use is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And what is interesting about the circular economy is that it will never happen very fast. So that means you have to do it together. And what we realized is, as big organizations are not good at disruptive innovation. That's, they're just geared towards incremental innovation and keeping, making processes happen as efficient and effective as possible. And that's important, right? Otherwise there will be a chaos. But what we can do, what we can bring them as a small organization is basically seduce them to start doing things differently. Now, you're saying, what does this have to do with my question? Well, what we have done in the beginning, and this really helped us grow, is sort of turn our organization inside out, if you will. So what we did is we worked on our platform, we worked on our solution, but at the same time, we made sure that we had a couple of very strong partners in some key areas to help us cover some of the bases that we couldn't cover ourselves. So we started working together with a big Dutch bank, ABN AMRO in this case. We started working with EY to do some of our impact measurements. We work with a big law firm, and that really helped us from a sort of operational point of view, but it also gave us a lot of credibility in the market, because a lot of our initial clients said, well, they vouch for you, so you must be doing something good. And that really helped sort of jumpstart our growth trajectory. And then when we had those companies in, it really helped us to sort of get more and more companies in. And of course, then you get sort of the networking effect, right? The more companies you get in, then the more companies want to sort of join the party. So, you know, I would advise everyone that starts their own business to really focus on what is your core competence, who do you need, and find the best partners out there that can help you with that. And by the way, UpLink and the World Economic Forum can really help with that, right? Because they have these partners and they have the right stakeholders for that. And then start sort of open innovation tracks with these organizations, because they all want it, right? But they're all a bit scared. They want to de-risk this transition. And you as a startup can help them facilitate that. And it works both ways, right? You can create all these win-win solutions with these partners that can then, you know, help them solve some of their issues, de-risk some of the opportunities that's ahead of them, and then help you as an organization grow. I think, you know, looking back, reflecting on what we've done, that was really key in our growth trajectory.
Great, thank you. Oh, no, absolutely. I wish there's a way where every UpLink top innovator can kind of just upload our founder story on a database and then kind of like, you know, categorize it and sort it by mission and purpose, because I think just listening to, again, as a top innovator myself, I'm very fortunate to be learning from the new cohorts every time, you know, a new batch comes on. It's like a big happy family getting bigger and bigger. Now I'm going to pivot to a bit in the audience questions through this iPad I have next to me, because we want to keep this interactive. And the first question actually for John is from Professor Kwok at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. First, I hope I'm reading this right. Thank you, John, for a great presentation. My question to you is, all right, if a university really wishes to engage the UpLink ecosystem, universities are special because not only do we have amazing, inspiring youth, but at the same time, we also have, academic-led research, like professors who have decades of research waiting to commercialize towards creating impact. Would UpLink be open to partnering with universities?
For sure. In fact, you know, that's one of the things we leverage every day. But it is also along our ambitions to really grow in the future. We've been able to leverage UpLink as a platform to crowdsource ideas and solutions, of which the top ones are provided with that opportunity to connect with one another, as you just described, and learn and be inspired and grow. But I think one of the things we want to do moving forward is also think about how do we crowdsource the evaluation and the review of all the solutions that are on the platform. And that provides a really nice opportunity to think about the university ecosystem, not just the full tenured professors. I think, you know, we really want to make this a democratized approach, and that students and researchers and assistant professors are encouraged to get on the platform and help provide the review of the different solutions that there. We're going to be introducing over the next months the types of incentives that look to get the public to review more of the solutions, provide them then with increased access to both to UpLink and potentially to the World Economic Forum's expert network, and really provide a way in which we're working closer with the academic space in order to review and provide some crowdsourced evaluation of the solutions. I think that beyond that, though, we know that universities are pivotal parts of the innovation ecosystem. And so looking to collaborate with them on the various innovation challenges, or even look to see, you know, are they in a position to be the funder or supporter, a main supporter of one of the challenges that we're running. I think that many of them are in collaboration with corporate and government entities to try to get something like that off the ground. So I'd be really happy to think through with Professor Kwok, I believe it was, to explore how we could collaborate with them.
Thank you, John. You know, again, Hong Kong is very blessed. You know, we have 4 or 5 universities in the global top 50. And I'm sure a lot of talent. from both students and faculty alike, as you said. And yes, remember everyone, UpLink is open to all right? Simply log on at uplink.weforum.org and sign up.
Maybe one other thing that we're seeing, and Christian, I don't know if you have any comment on this, but talent is a really important part of companies that are growing in this space. And it's one of the, funding is always the top thing that our innovators are asking us for help to support with. But I think talent is either the second or third one on the list. Is, as you're a growing organization, especially ones that are all across the world, it's not always a straightforward match between the ambitions that a company has and the local talent that they have. So I think the universities are also a key part in providing kind of the ambition for young students to think about the entrepreneurial journey, perhaps work for one, and think about how they could be, future and inspired entrepreneurs beyond.
Yeah, I can totally second that. That's, you're only as good as the people that you have in your organization. I mean, this holds for large organizations, but maybe even more so for small ones, right? Because you're only with a small bunch of people. So, it's really, and you don't have recruitment. So it's really important to have good people. We've learned that the hard way.
No, it's when it comes to talent, there's so many resources at the forum on the future of work, right? And these are things I wish more of the Asia community could embrace. And the forum does publish a lot of amazing reports. And we definitely look forward to the next impact report coming up from UpLink very soon next year, I believe, at Davos. Next audience question, Christian, if I can borrow 2 or 3 minutes of your time. One of our manufacturing partners, he's saying, a lot of the manufacturing is shifting from, to countries of less cost basis, essentially, because manufacturing is becoming essentially, the margin is getting so slim in so many ways that people have to look for new jurisdictions, right? New ways of efficient manufacturing. How would you advise, right, new setup manufacturing companies or factories to really integrate what you have done in advancing a sustainable financial business model? Remember, Christian, what you're doing is not just for the good of the planet, right? It's for people, for planet, for profit, because those who use your system actually end up with financial savings. So how could you give this blueprint or export this roadmap to up-and-coming factory owners or manufacturers in production?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it maybe allows me to share a bit what I hadn't shared in my presentation. But that's the circular economy really requires a sort of a value chain approach, or maybe even an ecosystem approach. So what I would advise manufacturers that are out there setting up new facilities or new looking for new locations, I think more and more so, what is going to be a sort of a critical success factor is the ability for, maybe certain industrial zones or ports or maybe even small provinces to start working together, and working together meaning sharing a bit more information with each other about which waste streams you may have or what materials that you're looking for. For example, you can store this information in passports, just selling our platform there a little bit. But having that ability to have a bit more transparency and working together with partners locally, I think can be greatly beneficial. We are actually now in the process of doing that with a number of ports and with a number of airports as well to start this collaboration. And it's hugely valuable, right? Because in the end, the circular economy, other than being sort of a data management challenge, it's also really in its core a supply chain management challenge. And with that comes the need to share data, but also to keep transportation lines as short as possible. So if you can find locations where there is the possibility to start working together a bit more closely, share a bit of information, and it can be even in a sort of a gated community, right? So you don't have to share immediately with the whole world, but just with a couple of trusted partners that you've found in that particular ecosystem. I think it's really the great way to go. And that also allows you to improve your margins quite a bit. So I think in that sense, it's a two-edged sword in that sense.
All right. Thank you, Christian. Well, in 2022 May, we're going to have Start Made of Hong Kong Festival again. And thank you once again to John, who gave a wonderful panel. So far, I think we've had 4 UpLink top innovators present across various different Hong Kong events. And Christian, we would love to have you, join us May, if not earlier, in our next big event, so that you can actually share this impact on a more numerical level. Because at StartMe Up Hong Kong, we actually really work with the actual other stakeholders of the ecosystem, which can directly benefit from your solutions and technology. One last quick question to John before we get some final words from our two amazing panelists here today. Oh, John, you're going to love this one. What are you looking forward to most at Davos in 2022?
Well, we're really excited to bring together the big partners for UpLink, Salesforce, Deloitte, and look to welcome a group of UpLink innovators who can come together, perhaps first in Zurich, get to know a little bit of the entrepreneur ecosystem in Zurich, and then afterwards make the trip up for some time in the Salesforce space and the Deloitte space that we'll have in Davos. I mean, I think the main message is that you're going to see front and center for the annual meeting in 2020 is that, the world's biggest issues, like we saw at COP26, but across a whole number of different areas, they're not going to go away without more collaboration. And part of that is going to be collaborating across the different types of companies. And we're really excited about how UpLink is supporting the innovation ecosystem to be responding to some of the world's biggest issues. So we'll be launching digitally and virtually in the month of January and February, 6 new cohorts of UpLink innovators, including, Christian, the Circular's 22, so the successor to your cohort of circular economy entrepreneurs. And really thrilled to see how a whole new wave of innovation is going to hit the World Economic Forum's network. So I think that's what I'm looking most forward to.
Can't wait. Final words. So Christian, 30 seconds, right? Any lasting words to everyone listening from Hong Kong Greater Bay Area, as well as all the other UpLink top innovators who made time today to join this Entrepreneur Day at HKTDC?
Well, I think first of all, really thanks for the invite. It was a great session. Really appreciate it. So thanks for your time and thanks for listening. What I'm looking forward to in 2022 is that our organization is actually going to change quite radically. So we're going to get some investments in. Always looking for more money, by the way. That's still our number one issue, but number two definitely is staff, is finding talented people. But it's that we're also moving east. So we're mostly active in let's say Northwest Europe, I would say. But there's going to be a strong push now for us to become more active, sort of on a global scale. So in that sense, it's going to be really exciting for us, and really looking forward to what that will bring us, the amount of data that will bring us, and how that will help shape our it's maybe a bit geeky, but our recommendation engine and sort of our machine learning tools. I think 2022 is going to be really interesting, and I think we're going to be able to share a lot of very interesting new features and a lot of new solutions. Maybe in May, in that event that you're talking about, Kenneth. It's going to be really cool what's going to happen next. So, stay tuned, I would say.
Fantastic. And John, of course, once again, we would love to welcome you back to give a keynote again at StartMe Up Hong Kong Festival 2022. Any final words from you as well?
Well, hopefully it'll be in person. I've never been to Hong Kong. It's a big miss in my CV, and it'd be great to join Christian there and have a chance to really launch something in collaboration with the Hong Kong Trade and Development Council. From my side, we're really looking at the next year, and congratulations, Christian, on all the success you've had, and Kenneth, your initiatives as well. We're really looking to see how we can broaden the different areas that we're focusing on the platform across more SDG areas. But I think importantly, we're also going to be introducing a much stronger link into the investment space. We're going to actually start sourcing investment funds that are doing great work to support SDG entrepreneurs. And for us, this kind of investment network is going to be a really important part of our overall ambition for the platform to really become an impact marketplace where we can match that number one need on the entrepreneur side with the types of funds that aren't just looking for market rate returns. They're looking for those type of returns while really supporting the entrepreneurs along a patient journey that many of you guys will be on. So I guess I'd close with just this invitation, an invitation no matter who you are. If you're a young student or somebody that wants to get involved with entrepreneurs, join UpLink. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out to tell you about some great stories that are happening in the space, provide video inspiration of different entrepreneurs. If you're a company, a philanthropist, a foundation, a government, and you'd like to collaborate, reach out to us. It's john.dutton@wefforum.org. And if you're an entrepreneur, join us. We have 4 different open challenges on the platform right now. We're about to launch a kind of open SDG challenge for any type of impact that you're making in the world, kind of your first step into the UpLink ecosystem. So I guess I'd close with that. Please join us on UpLink, and we hope that the next wave of UpLink entrepreneurs includes a huge amount of Asian entrepreneurs who are making a difference.
Yeah. Can't find a better way to end on that note. So once again, thank you, Mr. John Dutton, all right? My spiritual leader at the UpLink community, and of course, Christian, for really bringing the circular economy into the manufacturing space. And to everyone who joined in today, have a wonderful day. Hopefully you got some key takeaways from our great panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again, John, Christian, and Kenneth, thank you all for your presentation and insights. I'm sure that our audience has learned a lot from it. Please feel free to scan the QR code on the screen to send us your feedback about this webinar and stay connected with our smart advisor to explore more possibilities of your business by scanning the QR code on your right-hand side. You may click the link at the bottom of our website for our next session, which is on air now. Thank you for all your support and see you in the next session.